What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Nutrition Talks with Tyson the Trainer. Me, obviously. For those of you watching at home, you can see my little Harry Potter books in the background. They're my little favorite books. I don't know why I put them there. They're just sitting on the box. But that is not what we're going to be talking about. We're not talking about Harry Potter. We are talking about a few different tips to improve your relationship with food. Now, first and foremost, let me just say, I am not a psychologist, okay? There are those of you that will have bigger underlying issues than what I'm going to talk about today, and you should go and see a person who is a profession in this. Go and see someone who can help you with your mental health, because mental health is an important thing, and especially if it revolves around food, something you're eating every day, multiple times a day that you're always going to be surrounded by. You want to make sure you have developed a good relationship with food. The tips I'm going to be giving today are not in regards to psychological underlying problems, okay? These are just things that have worked for clients in the past, have worked for myself, and just these are things that like people have developed bad relationships with food with, not because there's an underlying issue per se, but just because of their mentality around food. And so trying to change that mentality around food by changing things has been a big improvement in a lot of people, like with their progress overall and the clients that I've had. But it's not going to be magic cure. Again, I'm not a fucking mental health expert. There are definitely people who struggle with the more underlying things, and go and see someone for this. It's worth it. Don't go get a nutrition coach if it's more underlying, Don't go get a trainer. Don't go try and diet. Go and get help and get it sorted. There is no rush to lose weight or to diet it off if you have an underlying issue. You need to fix that first, because otherwise you're not going to get out of this bad the situation you're in, I should say. Okay, so with regarding that, these are tips that I'm going to give you that I've helped people overcome, and it's fixed the underlying issue, right? These are very simple things, but they do play a big part, okay? So, firstly, stop trying to diet. If you are someone who's continuously been trying to diet for years on end, you consistently try, then you fail, you consistently try, then you fail, then you need to actually stop trying to diet. Because the reason you most likely aren't sticking to your diet is because you've been trying to do it for so long. Every second week is a new diet plan. Every time that you fall off track, you're like, oh, I'm not going to worry about it anymore. A few weeks later, you go back into this mentality. You're like, all right, now I'm going to diet again. It's that all or nothing mentality, If you are someone who is struggling to be compliant, and again, it's been an endless amount of times where you've tried to diet and you haven't been able to stick to it, and it's been an ongoing thing, stop trying to diet. As much as you don't want to hear that, it's the truth with what you need to do. Because basically, your brain is like, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to do this. I don't want to keep doing it. You get yourself motivated, you're in a good place, you don't do it you then give up. The reason is because it's just fucking sick of constantly being restricted. And funnily enough, anyone who has come to me and I've said, hey, how long have you been dieting for? And they're like, I can't remember the last time I wasn't dieting. I'm like, great, we're going to give you maintenance calories. We're going to make sure that you're not dieting. And they get upset about that. I'm like, no, you want to fix the problem? Here's how we're going to fix the problem. We don't diet them. Guess what happens? Surprise, surprise. They're able to actually diet in the future because we work on a foundation of eating enough food, actually giving yourself the food you need to have your body just functioning the right way, okay? Not constantly being deprived, not constantly being food focused, not constantly being tired. All those things are wiped out, and you forget what normal feels like until you actually start eating the right amount of food. A month later, 6 weeks later, when people are in a better headspace, it's not a 3 months of not dieting. It's just enough time where you're actually giving your body the nutrients and foods it needs and taking you out of that food focused state. Like when people have enough calories for maintenance, you're like, what do I do with all these calories? Good, you should feel like that. What do I do with all this? Because when you start eating well, when you eat enough protein, when you eat enough fruits, when you eat enough veggies, when you tick off the daily habits, you're going to be full. And it's actually most likely going to be hard to hit your maintenance calories. That's what you want to be doing. Because when it's a struggle, when it's hard, when you feel like, wow, this is a lot of food and I'm maintaining, now you're in a good position to set yourself up for good dieting. You're eating so much that you're basically like, this is epic. Like, there's no more food focus. Because even if you want to enjoy the 80-20 principle, you have that 20% in and you're still like, oh, I'm really full. I can't get any more food in. Fucking great. That's where you want to be, okay? The reason for this is because when you're at that point where you're basically like, I have so many calories, I have so much food, guess what happens? the food focus goes down. You have options, you have freedom, you have flexibility, you have all these things that basically just takes that stress, that takes you out of a stressed state, which is fantastic because you do that for 4 to 6 weeks, you eat plenty of good stuff, you're gonna be in a better headspace, and you're mentally gonna be like, oh, you know what? I'm actually ready to diet now. Some of you, it might take longer, okay? Do not put a time frame, I'm only gonna go to maintenance for 4 weeks and then I'm gonna go in deficit. Make sure that you are giving yourself enough food for a longer period of time as possible, okay? The longer you can eat at maintenance and be okay with not focusing on losing body fat, the more likely you are to be in a much better place going forwards. So if you can make a maintenance phase longer than you'd probably like to, you're gonna set yourself up in a better position because everything else goes away, you know? Tracking focus doesn't have to be there if you're tracking every little fucking thing. You get to actually move away from tracking, I would suggest too. Like everything related to dieting, you should be able to step away from that. Because then when you come back with a fresh brain, basically, in a fresh state, and you've been ticking off what you're gonna do, and you haven't been beating yourself up because you haven't been able to stick to your calorie deficit, and you find other things that you're actually able to focus on, you're going to be in a much better headspace to diet, okay? So the first thing, if you've been dieting for a long period of time, stop fucking dieting. And don't make up this, like, you're gonna hear this and be like, oh yeah, but nothing. Like, you are someone who's listening to this podcast because you're like, yeah, like I'm struggling at the moment. Well then guess what? If you're struggling, this is the truth you need to put into action. There's no point tricking yourself, being in denial, making excuses, doing all these other things where it's like, oh yeah, but, or oh, I'm different, or you're not, okay? You're not. If you're not sticking to your diet and you keep falling off track and you've been trying for ages, you're not different. You're like a lot of other people who have done that. And again, it comes back to most likely stop trying to diet. All right? So give it a go. Show yourself. Because here's the other thing you got to think about. You want to lose weight right now. I understand that. You want to look better right now. Cool. Fair enough. Well, guess what? What you're doing right now isn't supporting that. This whole 100% then 0%, this all or nothing, you know, putting yourself in this great headspace, I'm gonna diet, yeah, I'm good, and then 2 weeks later you're fucking burning the bridges. Well, that's not serving you, is it? And you ended up miserable because you're doing the same thing over and over again. So if you want to get different results, you've got to do something different. And I will not take on a client. If a client comes on board and I tell them, hey, we're not gonna diet, and they're like, yeah, but I want to diet, well, I'm like, well, look, you know, go find another coach. Because I'm not here to get people instant results. I'm here to fucking fix their health and, you know, put them in a good headspace before anything. We're not here to put the Band-Aid over a wound. We want to let the wound heal. And wound healing takes time. Like every other fucking thing that's important, it takes time. And if you can fix your issue with not being able to stick to dieting by not dieting for, let's say, a month, and then it sets you up, or let's say 2 months. Oh my God, 2 months, right? You're listening to this, so maybe June, you start dieting. You're only gonna need to diet for like, let's say 3 months. So you're gonna come into the next summer in a better place anyways. You're gonna be fine, okay? Stop trying to fucking diet. Now we say go back to maintenance calories. Do not reverse diet. Do not underestimate your maintenance calories. Use my calculator. It's gonna be higher than what you think. Good. Follow that. You know why? Because I'm not here to make people get bad results or to get no results. Like, I would be a fucking terrible coach if again, I would have 0 followers if the information I gave out didn't work. Because people don't listen to shit that doesn't work. All right? There's a reason if I went to a doctor and I said, hey, I've got an infected finger, you know, can I get some antibiotics for it? And he goes, no, we're just going to chop that finger off. I'm like, oh, but it's just slightly infected. He's like, no, we got to chop it off. What am I going to do? Go to another fucking doctor? Because I'm like, this guy's crazy. So if I'm giving you advice that makes you gain body fat, well then why the fuck would I have followers, right? Like, I'm setting people up for success. So why would I ruin my own reputation by giving the wrong advice? So go to my calculator, which is, you go on my highlights, or you can actually click the link in this little, what's it called? Not a bio, whatever, this is the description in the podcast, and you'll be able to actually click on the free calorie calculator. You download that, okay? You follow exactly what it says. The calories are going to most likely be higher than what you're used to. You're going to be like, oh my God, this is going to make me gain weight. Every single person. Oh my God, this is too many calories. Just fucking trust me, okay? Take your measurements. Don't look at your weight. Your weight will go up. You know why? Because you're going to be eating more food than you're used to. You know what happens when we have more food in our body? We are going to be heavier. Does that mean it's body fat? No. Does that mean you've ruined everything? No. It just means you've got extra food in your stomach. It means you've got extra carbs in your muscle, which makes you look toned, not puffy, not fluffy, not fat gain. Makes you look toned, muscle mass, actually, right? So you're going to be a little bit heavier. So do your measurements. Do your measurements before you start. Do your measurements every weekend. You're going to be surprised after 2 weeks of doing this that your measurements don't change. I took one client. She's 108 kilos, I think. She came to me eating 1,400 calories. And I was like, oh, okay, we need to sort this out. I put her straight up to 2,600 calories for 2 weeks. Guess what happened? She lost centimeters, okay? Not a huge amount that she's in a deficit, because she wasn't. She was in maintenance. But she ate the correct amount of food. And funnily enough, her weight didn't even change. Still stayed on the 108 mark. You know why? Because she was eating enough food for her maintenance. Undereating wasn't seen in progress. Why? Because her body most likely adapted to eating such a low amount of calories. Bump up the calories, give her enough food, the body adapts. Just like it adapts down, it adapts up. Give it the right amount of food, follow my calorie calculator. Eat maintenance every fucking day, okay? Not saving the calories, not doing any of that bullshit. Eat your maintenance calories, all right? Trust me. If anyone follows this and it absolutely ruined you, send me a message. I will publicly announce that I just don't know what I'm talking about, because I bet you follow this, you're not, right? You're not going to see that, because this calorie calculator is more accurate than 99% of the calorie calculators out there, because it actually takes your lifestyle into account with steps, all right? So click the link below. Next, after that, like I said, eating the right amount of food and eating regularly throughout the day. A lot of you tend to overeat at night time. Do you know why? Because you fucking restrict during the day. You're like, oh, I'm not hungry. Oh, I'm scared that I'm going to overeat again tonight because I did last night. So I want to save my calories for the day. All these things is the same process again and again and again. It causes you to restrict during the day. You binge eat at night time. You know how we fix that? You eat regularly throughout the day. Do not eat less than 350 calories per meal. Okay, because if you're even eating 4 times a day, 3 times 350 is going to be 1,400 calories. Is that right? 1,300 calories. None of you should be eating less than 1,300 calories. So you should be eating at least 350 calories per meal. Why do I say that? Protein, to get enough protein in, ideally 25 to 30 grams of protein, which is going to be about 120-ish calories, let's say 130 calories. Getting some fiber in from your fruits or your veggies, so let's say it's another 120, 130 calories. Just getting something else in apart from just fucking veggies and protein, like maybe some sauce, maybe some healthy fats, maybe some carbohydrates. That's going to be over 350 calories mark. That's an actual meal, okay? You cannot make a meal on less than 350 calories. You're not a 3-year-old, okay? You're an adult listening to this, I assume. So make sure that each of your meals are going to be over 350 calories. Do not save more than, I would probably say like 20% of your calories for nighttime, okay? Like if you have dinner, if your dinner is going to be 200 calories and your dessert is 600 calories, wrong thing to do, okay? Ideally, your dessert should be about, again, 350-ish calories, give or take. Because you know what that means? You have to eat more during the day. And that is going to put you in a much better place. Because what's happening, you're not eating during the day. You're basically starving yourself. You're doing all your activity. You're creating this basically mentality where you're trying to diet technically on a little as possible during the day. Now your appetite's unregulated at nighttime. Now it causes you to overeat. You finish your meal and you're like, yeah, okay, that didn't really tick the box though. I want something else. You go ravaging in the fridge. You're not satisfied. Even though you've had the food, you had 700 calories for a meal and you're still not satisfied. You're ravenous. Simply because you've restricted too much during the day, okay? So just change it. Just do it for one day. Eat more during the day. That's all I want you to do. Eat more, okay? And do not allow yourself to have more than 350 calories for dessert. This is a big, big difference for a lot of people, because you're actually going to get to dinner and be like, oh, I'm still full from the day. And you'll be like, all right, I have my dessert. And you'll be like, oh, I'm actually really full. Fantastic. That's what we want. We want hunger and appetite to be regulated, okay? I apologize. I keep looking at the microphone when I should be looking at the camera for those of you watching on YouTube. So the next one we talk about more frequently. Don't do extremes. Don't cut out shit, okay? People are, oh, I'm going to cut out this, or I'm going to cut out chocolate. I'm going to cut out chocolate for a month. I'm like, okay, cool, cut chocolate for a month. And then you binge chocolate after a month. You're like, what was the point in this, okay? People like extremes. People like that 75 hard bullshit. They like all these things where it's like, I'm going to change everything. Don't do that shit. Don't cut out carbohydrates. Don't cut out, I don't know, fucking whatever else. Like, do not eliminate everything, okay? Because when you say, I can't have this, what do you want to do? You want to have it. It's like you haven't had pizza for 2 months and then you decide you're going to go on a diet. And then someone tells you, hey, you can't have pizza. And now all of a sudden you want pizza. You're like, you haven't thought about pizza in 2 fucking months. And then all of a sudden you've got a rule that you can't have pizza and now you want pizza. Well, like, what the fuck, man? You know, do not do these extremes. A calorie deficit is all you need, okay? You focus on the 80-20 principle, which means you're going to be able to have a little bit of fun food in your diet. And one of the other podcasts I talk about, you sort out the 80-20 principle for the week. That way and for the month basically. That way you're able to enjoy a little bit of extra food without it being a negative repercussion and without it affecting you, which is what we want. You know, I want you in a good headspace. I want you to be able to have a good relationship with food, and that means not going extreme. When I say not going extreme, like, let's be real. You can't fucking eat takeaway all the time. You can't go out and get shit-faced and drink all the time. You have to have like some type of, you know, not rigidity, but I guess structure, we should say. But you do not have to be obsessive with every single thing and think that you have to be so strict. Because funnily enough, anytime, this leads into my next point, you have less rigidity, you're more likely to be successful. We have an outline, we have rules. I guess we should say rules we follow, but they're not fucking set in stone, okay? Calories, protein is your good enough goal. Do not focus on macros. Do not think you have to eat within 10% of your macros, sorry. Do not think you have to do all these extremes, because you don't. And funnily enough, any single person who I have told, if they're struggling with that stuff, and I've said, just focus on your protein and calories. The biggest response is people like, I feel so much less pressure on myself. I feel like I'm able to stick to this way easier because I'm not focusing on other macros. I'm like, fucking sweet, all right? Same thing as a calorie deficit. I give a calorie deficit range. Like, you know, we have basically, you can lose up to 1% of your body weight a week. Anything less than that, like, you know, like you lose 0.8%, 0.7%, 0.6%, anything's gonna be a win. So basically, let's say you're 60 kilos. You can lose up to 600 grams a week, which is about a 750 calorie deficit, okay? We always want to start our deficit on about 300 calories a day because that's going to be a noticeable one. So basically, you can go between 300 calorie deficit a day to 750 calorie deficit a day. Now, obviously, I'm not telling you to go straight to 750 because that's also a dumb fucking extreme mentality. But you've basically got, 450 calorie range of a deficit to go within the day. Some days you might be more hungry, which means you eat less of a deficit, more towards that 300 mark. Other days you're flat out, you're busy, you're not thinking about food, you get to the end of the day, you have 700 calories left. You look at that as an average for the week, you're gonna lose somehow, like some amount of weight. It's not gonna be exact, but guess what? You're in a deficit regardless. Being in a deficit range gives you more freedom, goes off hunger, actually teaches you to be internally switched on with your hunger cues instead of being like, I have a 500 calorie deficit, I'm sticking to a 500 calorie deficit, that's all it's gonna be. No, you wanna have that freedom, you wanna have a little bit less rigidity, and it's gonna set you up for success. So calorie range and protein is all you're gonna focus on. Remove the rigidity, okay? The same thing with rigidity, stop focusing on, I can't have this, I'm not allowed to do this, I can't do this, okay? When you are feeling like you are not in control and you say, I can't, I'm not allowed, blah, 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 that is putting you in a very, very bad spot because you're feeling out of control. And when you feel out of control, you want to rebel against that. So your mental self-talk, no one's holding a gun to your head telling you can't have these things. You're saying, I can't have them, but you can have them if you want to. So there's a weird, like it's this little mental change you've got to make in your brain. I'm choosing not to. You say you want to diet, you are choosing to diet, you are choosing to forego certain things. Your choice, okay? That's what you've got to remind yourself of. Because on the days where you're like, I can't be fucked, or, oh, you know, I want to have this, but I'm not allowed. Well, like you start changing that mentality that you're choosing, you're in control, you're in power, you're reminding yourself that you have chosen this. And sometimes little things like that can be a big payoff. That can be the difference between blowing it out and not blowing it out. You're like, you know what? Oh man, I really want that chocolate right now. fuck, I just can't have it. Oh, actually, no, I can. I just don't want to have it. I want to stick to this diet. And you say, I want to stick to this diet because you say you do. And then you remind yourself of that. Like, I say I want to do this. I want to stick to this. All right, I'm going to do something else. Like, it's funny. It's like that little mental click. You're like, oh, actually, I am in control. I can do this. You fucking step away. You know, is that going to be a magic trick straight away? No. But the better you get at reminding yourself that you can choose and no one's in control of you and no one's holding the gun to your head to diet and you're making this decision to actually diet and lose weight and to go into a calorie deficit and to do all these things, you're going to feel more empowered to actually make decisions. It's funny, but it's true. Like little things like this go a long way. And I always look out for my clients' self-talk. When they message me or they've done their check-in, if I see anything about can't, not allowed, any of those things, or a client voice messages me and says that, I correct them on that mentality because that is a fucking dangerous mentality to fall into. Like I said, when you feel like you can't, you feel out of control, you feel like you're not going to be able to do things, what do? You do it. Don't think of a pink elephant. Oh, I'm going to think of a pink elephant. You can't have this. Oh, I want the pizza all of a sudden. I'm like, well, what the fuck, man, you know? Or again, like some of you probably don't even have chocolate all the time when you're at maintenance calories. It's just a thing that's there. Sometimes you say yes, sometimes you say no. And then all of a sudden you're like, I'm going to diet. Oh, I want all the chocolate. Like, it's just this, it's so funny that it's such a mental thing that we, like when we feel like we can't have something, that we want that. A funny story, my client messaged me about, it's Easter coming up this weekend, right? And she's like, usually every Easter, I'm craving Easter bunnies. I want chocolate. I'm always hesitant when it comes up to Easter because I feel like I can't control myself. And she's like, this is the first year where I feel like I don't even have to have an Easter bunny if I don't want to, because I've been allowing myself to have chocolate in my diet whenever I feel like it to fit in. And I was like, holy fuck, there you go. You allowed yourself some freedom, and the fact that you allowed that freedom just allows you to you're in control now. You've made the decision. You actually have, the food doesn't have power over you. And this is another thing to think about. Who's giving the food the power over you? You are. You're letting certain food dictate how you feel or how you act. You're like, oh, I can't have this in the house. I'm not allowed to have this. Oh, that's going to cause me to overeat. As if this food has a magical fucking power over you, you know? It doesn't. You just give it power because it may, it's obviously caused you to overeat and stuff in the past, and then you've changed the narrative on that, and you're like, that food is, powerful over me. Because we all have, let's say, quote unquote, junk food. One person's kryptonite is not another person's kryptonite. One person's like, oh my God, fucking salted popcorn, caramel popcorn, I can't keep that in the house. Whereas I could keep that in the house, Or sweets. I'm just not a sweet person. Like I have lollies pre-workout because they're simple carbohydrates, but I don't fang for fucking sweets. I'm like, oh my God, sweets are so good. Like you look out here, you obviously can't look out here. I look out here at my study and I'm looking at the middle counter desk thing, food desk, well, I don't know what the fuck it's called. Anyways, there's lollies everywhere. Okay. Like literally we've always had lollies there. And I'm just like, I could keep them there forever, But when I'm dieting, all of a sudden, I'd be like, oh, there's chocolate there. I can't have chocolate. Well, I can. It's just normalized. It's there, And I actually trained myself to bring the food power away from me when I was in maintenance. I allowed myself to have whatever the fuck I wanted. And guess what? All the food that I said I can't have, not allowed to have, that's going to fucking cause me to binge, all that stuff got wiped away because I just allowed myself to have the freedom. And it's funny because you realize there's a never endless supply of this stuff. The more you have it, the less you're like, oh, like you go buy 6 jars of Biscoff, you might eat, let's just say you ate a jar of Biscoff, okay? You're not going to wake up tomorrow and have another jar of Biscoff. You're probably going to feel sick from the Biscoff. And you're like, oh, I don't want to look at that today. And then the next day you're like, oh, actually, I might have some Biscoff. I'm going to have some. And then you might have half a jar. And you're like, oh my God, I ate half a jar. And the next day you're like, okay, I'm just going to have a little bit of this. All right, cool. And then the next day. And it's like, all right, so you went through 1.5 jars and there's still 4.5 jars left. Is that right? Yes, that is math. Yes. 4.5 jars left. Because there's always Biscoff there, Like, oh, shit. Okay. So I can just eat Biscoff a little bit every day. And people have Biscoff in their oats and shit every day. And it's taking away the power. So it's like exposure therapy, Do this in maintenance, please. When you do that, bring foods in, not everything all back together. Don't just be like, oh yeah, I've restricted all these foods, into the house they come. Because you bring everything into the house, you're gonna just have everything, right? So it's like pick one food whatever that is to bring in at a time. Because this is the issue again. You bring in 6 bottles, you bring in 6 jars of Biscoff, okay? It's like an abundance of Biscoff. But then if you brought in a jar of Biscoff, a pack of cookies, a full block of chocolate, what else do people fucking go nuts on? Let's say salted caramel popcorn, okay? So you brought 5 different things in. Well, guess what? You're not going to get palate fatigue. You're not going to get sick of just eating Biscoff. You'll start to eat some Biscoff and you're back, now I want some chocolate. And then you dip the chocolate into the Biscoff. And then you might go to the salted caramel and you start eating some salted caramel. And then you go back over to like the chocolate and you have, you might melt some chocolate. I'm talking from fucking bit of experience here, obviously. And then you do this and you combine things. And it's like, no wonder you could eat all of that. Because if you just had one thing there, just the Biscoff, again, you might go through a jar, possibly. Are you going to go through 2 jars? You're going to get fucking sick of Biscoff real quick. Like, you're definitely not going to polish off 2 jars in a night. Because you're going to be like, oh my God, like this is so much Biscoff, so much sugar and fat. You actually feel sick. Like, as much as we love sweet foods and stuff like that, if you have too much, you fucking feel sick. Like when I do the food reviews from Tuga Pastries, I can't eat that whole thing right there. I will most likely shit myself, to be honest, because the amount of fat and the amount of sugar in there upsets your stomach. It's just too much for the digestive system. Same thing, man. You eat a jar of Biscoff, you're going to probably want to feel like you throw up or it's going to go straight through you. You're not going to want to pick up another jar straight away, especially if it's only Biscoff, okay? The same thing as chocolate. People are like, oh man, I can just eat chocolate all day. Cool, all right. Go and buy 3 family-sized chocolate bars, all right? You might eat 1 every day. You cannot eat 3 in a row because you will get palate fatigue, all right? Might be a challenge. Someone might message me and be like, hey Tyson, you're absolutely fucking wrong, mate. I got 4 family block of chocolates in at a time. All right, well, Jesus, everyone's got their own kryptonite. What I'm saying is when you bring in one thing into the house at once that had control over you, when you're in maintenance, not dieting, you can reduce that power that you've given the food, okay? So another tip there. What else? So no extremes, don't cut out things, eat the right amount of food, eat frequently, stop trying to diet, stop being so rigid with your calories and macros, follow the 80-20 principle and creating more freedom. The last thing is don't calorie bank, okay? Do not calorie bank for the weekends. Do not try and calorie bank for the evening, like I said. Just allow yourself to eat more food regularly throughout the day. And this is why I feel like this all goes back to maintenance. You stop trying to diet, you go to maintenance, all right? You stick to maintenance for 4 to 6 weeks. Just stop the fucking diet mentality, all right? It's only putting a pause. It's not forever. It's not stopping your progress overall. It's just a pause, okay? You put a pause on your dieting. You allow yourself, you're like, all right, Tyson's right. I've got to try this. He says that I need to stop dieting. I'll fucking do it for 2 weeks. Just tell yourself, do it for 2 weeks, okay? If it doesn't work, fuck me off. Don't listen to me anymore. Because what do I know? Not like I've fucking had this experience before. So follow over 2 weeks, all right? Eat the actual amount of calories you should be. If you do the calorie calculator, this is another issue that clients have. They download the calorie calculator, or again, I tell my clients the calories, and they go, hey, it's really hard to eat this amount of food. I can't get to those numbers. Great. I don't expect people to be able to get to the number straight away. But guess what that does straight away if you cannot get to the number you're supposed to be eating? It just takes away any fucking appetite and any excitement for food because you can't eat that much. Like when you're full, you do not stress about trying to get more food in. It's like when people become rich, they don't stress about low quality shit that we stress about, you know? We focus on bills. We're trying to think about paying our rent. We're trying to think about, what groceries we're going to buy. We got to think about trying to save money, all this stuff. A rich person's like, hey, I'm going on vacation for 6 weeks in the fucking Swiss Alps just because I want to go. No care in the world. Don't care how the rent's going to be covered. All that stuff's done, you know? They don't have a fuck about anything. Because they've got enough money coming in. There's no worry there, you know? With food, you got enough food coming in. There's no scarcity of like, oh, I'm going to be hungry. Oh, I need to have this because you're just like, I'm full. Like, fuck. Like, you're satiated. You're full. What are you going to do? That's it. There's no restriction. There's no scarcity. You're like, oh, fuck, I've got all these calories. So it's like, if you can't eat them at the start, great. Keep working towards them because the stomach's a muscle. You can train it. It will be able to handle more food over time. So it's like first week, maybe you're supposed to be eating 2,700, you're eating like 2,400. Cool. Second week, now you're like 25, 26. Third week, you're at 27. When you hit 27, or whatever your calories are, eat that for 2 to 4 weeks, okay? Don't just finally get up to where your maintenance is, then cut back down. That's not the point. The point is to get you out of a dieting mentality and getting you in such a good headspace that you're fucking eating so much food that you feel satisfied, you've got no food focus, okay? Then when you're at maintenance, this is where we practice good habits. Calories, protein, fruits, and veggies. That's it, all right? With maintenance, again, sorry, I should have said this. With maintenance, you don't need to have an exact maintenance calories. If I've told you 2,700, ideally you want to be eating roughly closer to 2,700, but don't give yourself such a big range. I'm like, I can have 2,200, 2,700. Bump it up to 2,700, but if it's between 26, 27, 28 type of thing, 100 calories difference on either side of maintenance is fine. All right? Ideally, the more the better. Okay? Then when you're at maintenance, calories, protein, fruits, and veggies, eating regularly throughout the day, no less than 350 calories per meal, no saving calories for the weekend, no saving calories for the evening, bringing in a food that you've maybe given too much focus on and having an abundance of it in the house. So you remind yourself, I can just have this tomorrow if I want to have more. I can have this tomorrow if I want to have more. You start to do that stuff, you become less rigid. I'm very certain you're going to be in a much better place with your food. So I want you to go give that a go. If you enjoyed this podcast, if you enjoyed the simplicity of it, and if you think it's going to help other people, please share it. Please give me a tag, because I love helping people, especially improving their healthy relationship with food and just putting them in a better headspace. And I'd love if you can share this with people so I can help them out. Until next time, speak to you then.